Seiya Suzuki made the most costly error in Cubs history since Steve Bartman.
I feel terrible for Seiya Suzuki.
Heartbreaking.
I feel
heartbreaking.
Awful.
That was
8th inning, 1-run ball game, 2 runners on base for the Braves, 2 outs, routine fly ball to right field. Seiya Suzuki calls off the center fielder. Easy play for him, and he just whiffs. Completely misses it. 2 runs score. Braves end up winning that ball game. And that win would have just done so much for them to get in the playoffs. You would have felt like the playoffs were theirs. I felt awful for him. He's down on the ground. It looked like, I don't want to speculate because there's a chance he did. He just missed it, but it looks like he lost it in the lights. He was blinking pretty hard. Seiya Suzuki went on to say, I was seeing it pretty well until the very last second. I honestly thought it went into my glove. So it was just that split second where I blurred my vision.
Oh.
And there's no way around this, Alex. The moment, the magnitude of the situation, the playoffs on the line, this is the most costly error since the Steve Bartman situation years ago against the Marlins. And if everybody remembers the Steve Bartman play, but what actually happened, it allowed the Alex Gonzalez play to happen right after that. Fun fact, Miguel Cabrera was hitting for that play when Alex Gonzalez made that error. But that was in the playoffs. That's the most costly error maybe in Cubs history. This sucks. I feel awful for him. This is up there though. Given the moment, given the team they're playing, given everything that's on the line, given the time in the game. If they win that game, I feel so good about the Cubs getting into the playoffs. They lose that game because of that error. It's heartbreaking, and it is absolutely one of the most costly errors in the history of the Chicago Cubs. And the history of the Cubs goes back a long, long, long way, and this is up there.
It's just hard because that was just kind of the final moment of the Cubs breakdown and the error, because they allowed the Braves to get back into that game as a team.
Yeah.
So it's just really unfortunate that that last play, it's like, oh, that's what lost it. It's like, no, the last couple of innings is what really lost the game for the Cubs, because they had a great lead and then they let the Braves get back into the game. But I think the most heartbreaking part is that loss allowed the Brewers to clinch the NL Central.
Yeah, Brewers clinch, and the Cubs are falling apart. It happened again last night.
Yeah.
Alex. I mean, it wasn't like as obvious of an error, but
they had a lead and they
had
lost
a lead,
it.
and then in the infield there was a possibly double play ball. Ozuna was running, so he's not very fast, but a slower hit ball, double play ball. Second baseman goes to field it, flip it to shortstop, and throws it too high, goes over his head. All hell broke loose after that. Runs score. They end up losing that ball game last night in extra innings, and it just feels like it's all falling apart for the Cubs when it was all right there. But the one beneficiary, that's a word, beneficiary,
sure,
was the Milwaukee Brewers, who end up clinching the NL Central.
So let's get to that. All right. Our next statement might be a little shocking. Brewers clinching helps the Cubs.
Obviously, the Cubs needed to win.
Yeah.
But now the Brewers have clinched. And it does help the Cubs.
Why?
Hear me out. They play each other the final 3 games of the season. What's the Cubs' strong suit? Or what's the Brewers' strong suit? Well, it's their pitching. It's their starting pitching, to be exact. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta. They have some studs in that rotation. Now the Brewers clinch the division. They are going to have to play in that wild card round because they're not a top 2 seed, and they are going to line up their pitchers to pitch in that series. So now you're going to go into this series with the Brewers, if you're the Cubs, and you are not going to be facing those guys. You're not going to have to face Corbin Burns in that series because they're going to want him ready for game 1 of the playoffs. So the strong suit of the Brewers won't be thrown at you as hard as it could be, and maybe they. Look, the Brewers have no other. They're locked into the 3 seed. It does not matter what they do for the rest of the season. It doesn't matter if they win, if they lose. So we might see offensive off days. Now, we might not. They might, and I don't think they should. But these games don't mean anything to the Brewers, and they mean everything to the Cubs. So the clinching of the division already wrapping up does benefit the Cubs going into this final series. The errors suck. The Cubs could have done a lot to their playoff hopes. Their playoff hopes have gone way down now. It's probably it's 50-50 at this point. They're tied with the Marlins in that final spot. But they are going into a final series with an opponent that will not be firing on all cylinders, and that does help them. So, Alex, spin zone. Seiya Suzuki error help the Cubs get into the playoffs. Dude, it's a spin zone. It's a spin zone.
Go that far.
Do you know what a spin zone is? You got to find the positive and the
positive.
negative. Yes, obviously it sucks, and I feel terrible for Seiya. And everything I said a second ago was all true. It sucks, but spin zone.